All right, I think that's all that we need to cover. Are you all ready for this exciting event? Yes. Okay. Please help me to welcome our current RPT Chairman, James Dickey, and former U.S. Representative from Florida's 22nd District, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West.
As a result of our coin toss that we held, Congressman West will open first and close last. Chairman Dickey will receive the first question, and he shows his podium in his side on the stage. We do have some timers up here who will be keeping track of the debate and the time and providing information to you, so be watching for the signs. And now we will have opening statements at 2 minutes apiece, and we will begin with Colonel West.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be back here with the Texas Federation of Republican Women. I'm running for state party chairman, and the reason why is very simple. When I was in combat back in the summer of 2003 in Iraq, we had a mission to go out and find a Iraqi terrorist weapons cache. Before we got to that destination, we were ambushed. And very close to me was my driver, Corporal Robert Delgado, who lives down in Rosenberg, Texas right now. He was shot in the chest, the bullet ricocheted off and went through his arm. And so you hear those words, man down. And there I looked down and there was blood spurting out of his arm. The most important thing that they teach you in combat life-saving is that you must first stop the bleeding. We have to stop the bleeding here in the great state of Texas. When you think about the state House seats that have been lost, the state Senate seats that have been lost, the U.S. congressional seats, the judgeships that have been lost. When you look at the trend from Mitt Romney in 2012, who won Texas by 16 percentage points, President Trump, 9 percentage points, Ted Cruz, only 2.3 percentage points. You see already all of the ads that are being running here. The fact that the Democrat Socialist Party has named this a battleground state. We have to stop the bleeding. We have to make sure that leadership is not an entitlement. Leadership is about going out and producing the results, and leadership is about leading in times that are tough. And right now, as long as the left is focused on taking Texas, we need to tell them that come and take it. It's not a bumper sticker. It's not just a slogan. It's how we live our lives here in Texas. And that's so important to me, having been born and raised in Georgia, went to the University of Tennessee, because there were a lot of men who came here to Texas to fight for liberty and freedom that came from my birth state and the state where I call myself a volunteer for life. God bless you all.
And now we will hear from Chairman Dickey.
I could not agree more that leadership is not about what you say, it's about what you do. That is why right now, our response to the New York Times when they said the House District 28 race going on right this minute in Fort Bend is the most important harbinger for all of 2020. It has received endorsements from Warren, from Biden, from Beto. They're all pouring in national money, efforts from all over the country to try to flip the Texas House. And we just got the report today, and we have thousands more Texas Republicans turning out to vote in that district. Our margin of victory is dramatically bigger than our margin of victory was in that race just 2 years ago. So yes, it is about what happens, not what is said. And what we have done in the last year and a half is make dramatic changes to how we are operating, because we are all in for victory, and you guys have seen it up close and personal. You've seen our work to make sure that you grow this membership because we need you on the ground. You have seen our work to donate money to your organization and have a fantastic new person help grow your organization even more, because we are all in for Texans defending Texans in 2020.
All right, thank you so much, Chairman Dickey. These first sets of questions are questions about certain topics, and they are for Chairman Dickey. How has taking a salary impacted your performance as our Chief Fundraising Officer? Please tell us about your daily responsibilities and your typical weekly schedule. How often do you travel and why?
Sure. Leslie Racine's actually got a conflict today, or else she would be here as a member of this great organization. She manages my schedule. Rachel Wilson sees my schedule. They can attest to the fact that I work between 6 and 7 days a week. This week, for example, tomorrow I will be going to Amarillo for a fundraiser. Monday morning I'll be in Abilene for another fundraiser. Monday afternoon I'll be back in Austin for meetings with elected officials. And Tuesday we start the week with the staff working in the office and doing phone calls. What happened? The SREC said, based on the 2018 election results, there is no way that we can continue with anyone who is not all in as chairman of the party. And my commitment was, okay, if I could commit all of my time, then the party would have all of my time. And in 1 year, we went from a non-election year where the party had never raised more than $1.1 million in a non-election year before I was chairman. We raised $3.3 million. And part of that was me personally, and part of that was me getting other people to get involved. That's part of the chairman's job, is making this a team effort. And I recruited amazing people to come back and be involved with the party. And you guys have seen some of that firsthand with Steve Munisteri and Carl Rove and dozens of others coming in and working together to grow the party at a level we've never seen. But not only did we grow the fundraising by triple what had ever been before, we managed conservatively. So before I was elected, they had never had more than $2 million savings. We don't have a dime of debt. We now have $4.4 million in savings for this crucial 2020 election.
All right, thank you, sir. And now, I would ask you, the RPT chairman has only recently been paid a salary for his service. If elected, would you take a salary, and or would you continue to accept paid speaking engagements during your term, and why?
Well, I would accept whatever decision that the state Republican Executive Committee will make. You know, I spent 22 years in the United States Army. You're not going to get really rich spending 22 years in the United States Army. And you're going to spend some time 24/7. So I know what it means to have a duty commitment and to answer the call of service and to look at your family and say goodbye and go off to a faraway land. So committing myself, that's not an issue for me. And duty is always the first and most priority thing for me. But I will tell you that I have a responsibility to my wife and to my 2 daughters to make sure that I am a responsible man, and I'm a responsible husband, I'm a responsible father. So I want to make sure that I do provide for my daughters. As a matter of fact, after I leave here, I'm going to go look at 2 wedding venues because my oldest daughter will be getting married next spring. So that's a very important thing for a father to be able to provide his daughter the best possible day. So if I am to get this position, I will abide by whatever decision the SREC lends as far as being paid. I'm not going to go to any member of the SREC to ask them to write me a check, but I'm going to make sure that I maintain my responsibilities as a man, as a husband, as a father to my family.
Okay, and so to follow up to that, and Paul, there's still just a little bit of time, that's okay. Just very quickly then, could you say, would you continue to accept the paid speaking engagements during your term?
I am not going to accept anything that conflicts with my duties. This is the priority duty. This is the most important thing.
All right, thank you. All right, so now for your next area, your next topic. Congressman, if elected, what are your specific plans for yourself and for the RPT team for the first 30 days into your chairmanship?
One of the first things that I will do is issue a challenge to the Democrat Party chair of Texas, because I think it's important that we bring them out, we expose them, and we put them on defense for what they believe in. There is no reason why progressive socialist policies should find a home here in the great state of Texas. The next thing that we need to do is make sure that we're getting on college and university campuses to speak to our next generation of future members of the Texas Federation of Republican Women, and make sure that they understand that we have their back. They don't have to succumb to the pressures of their professors, the administration, and their peers. And also we're going to do that with the high schoolers. We need to make sure we have a solid presence in our minority communities, to include down along the Rio Grande Valley and these urban population centers. What we have seen the left do in the urban population centers to the black community, and understand I was raised in an inner city community, is criminal, it's immoral. And we need to be there and delivering our message 24/7. And then the most important thing is to sit down there quickly, get all of the transition briefs that are necessary, and as I did as a commander in the United States military, be able to set the responsibility of leading this organization and be ready to continue on with all the great programs and policies and procedures and processes that they have in place, but look at where we can increase our efficiencies to make sure that all of the money that is going to be flowing in here, we can not just match, but we outmatch them. And we've got to let people know that Texas is the most important state in this constitutional republic to make sure that we hold this constitutional republic.
All right. And Chairman, if re-elected, how will your first 30 days be different than your last election's first 30 days?
It'll be dramatically different because each 30 days we're doing right now, we're executing on our plan for 2020, and we are already light years ahead of where we were 2 years ago. Just for perspective, in the last election at our peak, we had 8 paid field staff spread around the state. Now, for comparison, the Cruz campaign had 18 paid field staff, and the O'Rourke campaign also had 18 paid field staff at that same point. But we stayed at 8, we never got bigger. By comparison, the O'Rourke campaign went up to hundreds. Cruz campaign stayed at 18. This election, and the election before, we had 16. So 16 plus 8, we had 24. The last 2 elections combined, we already are approaching 30 paid field staff right now. At the earliest phase we've ever had that many, and we are on our path to get to 250 paid field staff. And this is not a pipe dream, this is a plan we are executing on with our partners in the party because we already have those millions of dollars raised and saved up for exactly this effort. And so we're gonna have 250 paid field staff literally by June. So within 30 days of the state convention, we will have 10 times more paid field staff than we have ever had. And for perspective, our field staff right now is currently 100% under 30 years old, over 50% female, minority, or both, and a full third are bilingual. We are working in urban communities. We are working in suburban areas. We are not just defending the territory the Democrats are trying to flip. We are aggressively going after right this minute districts that Democrats have held that we intend to flip. We are going to win and win big.
All right, thank you, sir. And I will give you the next question as well. On the RPT website, there are 2 separate categories, auxiliaries and coalitions. What are the qualifications for the value of these 2 separate designations? And should either or both of these lists be longer, perhaps including other things, other organizations such as Hispanic Republicans of Texas?
So auxiliaries are folks who have committed to support all of the principles and all of our efforts at the Republican Party of Texas. But for obvious reason, that's a smaller list than coalitions. And the point of coalitions is groups who partner with us for specific purposes and for specific goals. So for example, the Texas Association of Business might be a coalition with us for lowering property taxes or for eliminating the margins tax, something like that. So it would be obvious that coalitions lists would be longer, and I am constantly in an effort to get those lists to be longer. In fact, I've got a history of working to try to increase the auxiliaries in particular for our organization.
Okay, and Hispanic Republicans of Texas, have you talked with them about being either?
Yes, I've had meetings with them about both.
Any results?
Not yet.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to Congressman. As I mentioned on our RPT website, there are auxiliaries and coalitions. The TFRW is not listed as either. What do you know about the working relationship between the RPT and the TFRW? What would you do to intentionally build a partnership with Republican women around the state?
Well, you know, having been married for 30 years, most of us guys know that it doesn't get done unless a woman is involved in it. So I would definitely seek to make sure that the TFRW is part of the auxiliaries, because if I think about the women who can stand up for our principles and values, it's you all. You know, if you go back to ancient history, and I love it, the Spartan warriors, the women of Sparta were the ones that created the Spartan warriors. As a matter of fact, there was the story about the Queen Gorgo of Sparta, who once said that only Spartan women raised true men. So I think it is very important that we are partnering, and we have TFRW as not a coalition, but as an auxiliary to work side by side with the Republican Party of Texas and partnering and going on. You know, we hear all of this talk from the progressive socialist left about how women should divorce themselves from the Republican Party, how we are conducting a war on women and all of these type of things. That's why we need your voices. And even more so, we need more of Black and Hispanic women's voices in this type of forum. When you think about what the struggles of Black single mothers are going through, there's a reason why Ron DeSantis won the gubernatorial race in the state of Florida. It was on one issue, and that was school choice. He promised single Black mothers in Florida that he would not see their children relegated to a failing school. That's a powerful issue, and you all can be the ones that deliver that issue. And we can make sure that we have more faces that resemble my skin color that are sitting here, because we're failing there.
All right, and Chairman, if you would respond to the history of TFRW.
Yeah, actually, I know Karyn Newton had to leave earlier, but she can vouch for the fact that I asked multiple times about TFRW becoming an auxiliary, and actually she had the national parliamentarian for NFRW release a opinion that said the national bylaws actually would not allow TFRW to be an auxiliary. And as soon as we learned that, and I was elected in June of 2017, we learned that in December of 2017, early January of 2018, at that board meeting for TFRW that I attended, we added a special link from our website to TFRW, because even though you weren't able to be, according to your own national rules, an auxiliary, we wanted to be sure that it was crystal clear that we are joined at the hip. And of course, all the work we've done since then in the last year to move over from the Corning campaign to the RPT, the effort to grow your membership, to vote. I personally voted in favor of donating for the first time ever, donating funds directly to the TFRW to help you guys increase your staff specifically for the purpose of increasing your membership, because we know how crucial you are to this fight, and because we are joined at the hip. If we are going to not just defend Texas, but really fight back against the attempts by the Democrat to flip Texas, we must all work together, and we have been for a while now.
On that, and would you respond to partnerships that you have built, whether they be auxiliaries or have a different name, partnerships that you've built in the businesses and all the different positions that you have?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things we need to be pursuing is, you see all of these businesses and corporations that are moving to Texas. 10% of Fortune 500 corporate headquarters are in the state of Texas. Y'all here in Collin County know exactly the fact that Toyota North America picked up and left California and came right here to Plano, Texas. It's important that we go in and we engage these corporate leaders and say, there's a reason why you moved here. You moved here because of the policies of the Republican Party of Texas. You moved here because of the tax, the regulatory policies, the growth, opportunity, and prosperity. So what we need you to do is come alongside of us, because if you have to pick up and leave Texas, where to Sam Hill you going to go? Okay, so that's the thing that we have to convey to them. And furthermore, I think it's so imperative, it's so important that the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas talks to those employees. Because I think that a lot of these presidents and CEOs are making the right decision and moving here, but they're not talking to their employees. And we need to start getting them to understand why you are here, why you are able to move into a house and pay 60 to 70%, and get a bigger house for what your bottom line is. So those are the critical things in the business community. But again, I know Ann Shockett personally. I wrote her an endorsement letter for her to become your president. I'll just pick up the phone, call Ann and say, Ann, that rule is stupid. We're going to make TFRW an auxiliary to the Republican Party of Texas.
And I'll come back to you with the next question, the next topic area. On the Republican primary ballot this March, there are 10 propositions to which voters will reply yes or no. How should the results of the primary ballot's 10 propositions be used And which of those propositions are most important to you?
Well, I can't remember all of the 10 off the top of my head, but I think that's the basis by which you develop your legislative priorities for the following year going in. And once those ballot measures are passed, it's very important that we start engaging our Republican elected officials at that moment to start planning, to build up the policy agenda for us going into the 87th legislative session. I don't think that we should be, retroactive. I don't think that we should sit back and wait. We need to partner with those elected officials to make sure that we have a seat at the table. We need to make sure that we're part of that policy that is being developed, the legislation. And then before we go into the next legislative session, we need to have a joint press conference with the governor, with the lieutenant governor, with the Speaker of the House. And I hope it's not Dennis Bonham, because we need to do better. That's unethical, the actions that he took. But we need to be able to show that this is our roadmap. We need to be able to show each and every one of you in the Republican Party of Texas that we heard you, going back to what you decided. And then we got to prioritize it. And we got to make sure that we go out there and do the things to continue growth, opportunity, and prosperity for us. So I think property taxes is very important. I do not want to see what happened or is happening in Virginia ever happen here. The fact that the Virginia State House just voted last week to make indoor gun ranges illegal. So I think it's important that we prop up our Second Amendment rights and make sure we don't have any of this red flag law stuff that happens here. I think we need to protect life. I think we need to continue to strengthen our families. When I was born, two-parent household in the black community was 77%. Today it's 24%. We've got to do some work to strengthen families in our urban centers. So those are examples of some of the things that I want to see as priorities.
All right. Chairman, if you would please explain to us how these 10 topics were chosen and what writing assistance or legal assistance was used in developing those, and how many people were involved in the process?
Sure. First, if I may, with all due respect to your persuasive abilities, if anybody could have gotten that rule change, I'm sure Jody Rushton would have been able to. And as I was with her just yesterday,
maybe Jody ain't me. Okay.
She was a prior.
I know who Jody Rushton is.
So I'm quite sure, could it have been done, she would have made sure that it happened. To the question of how were these developed, they are developed as they always are. State law cedes the ability to define the quantity and content of all of those questions to the State Republican Executive Committee. So it's absolutely critical that you participate in the state convention and in the election of your State Republican Executive Committee members. There are a handful of very critical things in addition to just being the board and being in charge of the Republican Party as the board. This is a very specific right of theirs. So in terms of specifics, it would have come through the Resolutions Committee. That is a committee of roughly 19 members of our 64 members of the State Republican Executive Committee. They worked on these. The purpose of these, for a background, the purpose of these is to act as a really incredibly accurate poll within each member's district. Because what we used to hear is someone would say, okay, well, we have a legislative priority of eliminating school property tax and replacing it with a consumption tax, but the folks in my district don't care about that. They don't like that. Or we want to fight for educational freedom and opportunity. Well, yeah, but the folks in my district don't want that. So the point of these is to get an accurate read. What do the people in that district think of it? So it's not a legal question. It is a poll question for Republican primary voters by each district. How do you, Mr. Delegate or Mrs. Representative, how do your primary voters feel about this issue? And we've recently seen really good responses on each of them. And as chair, I'm not allowed to take sides on which one's great. It's up to the voters.
All right, and just to follow up, when I mentioned legal assistance, I meant professional writing assistants or lawyers that would have helped with the writing of those before they were placed on the ballot.
There are multiple attorneys on the committee, and they served in committee.
Thank you. Congressman, according to our rules that we agreed to in advance, you'll have 30 seconds additional to respond since your name was called.
Well, I'm good.
Okay, well, we'll start with you now for our next question. The next set of questions are going to be questions that you'll each get to answer. And So we'll rotate going back and forth. So we'll have this first one. Most agree that the only way to win in November is to unify the party. At TPPF policy orientation this week, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said, now summarizing, Republicans are independent thinkers, unlike Democrats who subscribe to groupthink. However, our party has a recent history of divisiveness and even defaming others who think differently. Have you ever successfully unified differing factions? And how would you work to unify the party not only for this 2020 election, but beyond?
Well, if you've ever been in command of a unit in the Army, it's about unifying different factions. You know, people that come from various different backgrounds. And what my 22 years in the military taught me is that leadership is all about taking a diverse group and getting them to accomplish a common goal. And I think the most important common goal is for each and every one of us to ask ourselves, do we want to pass on a better Texas to our subsequent generations? And I think we do. You know, my parents were registered Democrats. I was born and raised in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia. But my parents raised me on what, without a doubt, are conservative principles. If they were alive today, they would not have anything to do with this Democrat Party. Because what unifies us is our Judeo-Christian faith heritage. What unifies us is our belief in strong traditional families. What unifies us is our sense of individual responsibility and accountability. What unifies us is our sense of quality education, the means by which you can unlock the doors of any opportunity that you want. What unifies us is our small business entrepreneurship and free market economic principles and belief in that. I often tell people the biggest difference between Republicans and Democrats is Republicans believe in making victors. Democrats believe in making victims. And we challenge people and ask them that very simple binary question. Which do you choose to be? I think that we unify. And then the last important thing about our party, our conservative principles and values, is service to the nation. We take those 6 principles, I guarantee you, much the same as Ronald Reagan was able to do. He only lost one state in his time running for election and re-election. That was Minnesota. We can unify people across the great state of Texas. We can bring people that claim to be D's over to our principles and values, independent to our principles and values. We can get the people in the inner cities, in the Hispanic and the Black communities, but we have to stick to those very 6 basic fundamental values.
All right, thank you. Chairman, would you also answer, have you successfully unified different factions, and how would you work to unify the party, not only for this election and this year, but beyond?
Actually, I've got a couple of really great examples. As Linda Kinney can tell you, my first election was in the middle of a term. So almost precisely, my predecessor had led the SREC, had chaired the SREC meetings for a year before I came on, and I chaired those same SREC. The only difference was who the chair was for the second half of that term. In the first term, my predecessor had to cast 3 tie-breaking votes. You can look it all up, it's all on record. He had to cast 3 tie-breaking votes, and the average win margin was less than 60%. It was 55 and change % agreement on bills, on positions, on resolutions, on rule changes, everything else. In the year that I took over the exact same SREC, where the only difference changed was me and how I structured the open and honest debate that they could have, the frank conversation they could have in committee, we went to, I never once had to cast a tie-breaking vote. Once I cast a vote that put us at 2/3, but never once a tie-breaking vote. And the average win margin was nearly 80%. Much more unified because we focused on the goals and we allowed open and honest debate inside before we then took a position, and we increased transparency. Second deal, we did a giant candidate recruiting effort this past year. As a result, we have more than double the number of candidates on the primary ballot that the Democrats have this time. We have more opposed incumbent Democrats than ever in Texas history. And we have a 15% drop in contested primaries in the Republican Party of Texas. Because as we worked on recruiting candidates, we didn't rig anything. We're required to be neutral in the game. We just said, look, our goal is to beat the Democrats. We need somebody in this district, in this district, in this district. And we managed to do both. Dramatically increase how much we're fighting the Democrats and reduce how much we're fighting each other. That has been a harbinger of everything I've done my term.
All right, thank you, Chairman. And now I'll give you the next question. Chairman, how would you describe your leadership style, and why does it make you the better choice for our chair for this next term?
Well, having come up through the ranks of being a volunteer, right? Being a volunteer on campaigns, being a volunteer in a local party, being a delegate to the National Convention 3 times, alternate or delegate 3 times, being a delegate to or alternate to the state convention multiple times. I am particularly sensitive to the fact that we are a volunteer organization. That literally any one of our folks who are dedicating dozens, sometimes hundreds of hours, volunteer hours. I mean, you guys put in 2.2 million hours last year and rightfully deserved the trophy for the most of those. As volunteers, it cannot be about command and control. It cannot be about forcing something. It has to be about empowering. And so that's what we have done. And the RPT, since I have taken over, it has all been about increasing transparency, increasing openness, increasing ways for volunteers to be involved. That's part of why we did that candidate recruiting task force. We have constantly looked for more ways for more people to be able to help. And it is working. We have now the biggest on record number of volunteers the RPT has had in decades. We have the biggest voter registration effort we have ever had, which is not just super critical for winning in 2020, but it's a great way to empower volunteers to get involved. And you guys have been a crucial part of it. You've seen firsthand how much we've enabled all this. That is absolutely my style because that is my history. I came up from seeing how wonderful it is that Texas, the Republican Party of Texas, is the most bottom-up political organization in the country, bar none, and that is our secret sauce, that is our secret weapon, and that is why we are going to win in 2020.
All right, thank you. Congressman, I'll repeat the same question for you. How would you describe your leadership style, and why does it make you the better choice for our next chair?
Leadership is defined by what I was taught as the 5 C's. It is courage, it is competence, it's commitment, it's conviction, and it's character. Character means doing what is right when no one's watching. I belong to the world's largest volunteer organization. That was the United States Army. A volunteer organization that did door knocking in neighborhoods that, well, it was a little bit different. But the whole reason why we did it was to make sure that you had your rights, your freedoms, and your liberties right here, right now, today. And I think that this country would be better served if it had more men and women who had taken the oath of office, who had taken that commitment to the United States Constitution, and be willing to do as Abraham Lincoln said, make the last full measure of devotion. I've been on the battlefield and I've seen young men die. I've seen young men lose their limbs. And I will tell you that when we have more people that understand selfless service, I'm not here to serve anyone else than you, the people of Texas. And I was recently asked in a candidate questionnaire form, who is the most important Republican in the state of Texas? And I answered that question the same as I answered when I was a commander. The most important soldier in my unit was the newest soldier. The most important Republican in the state of Texas is the newest Republican, because that's who we have to wrap our arms around. And that's who we have to recruit and develop so that we create the next generation of TFRW. So I've been volunteering all my life, just like my dad in World War II, just like my older brother who was not drafted, who volunteered as a Marine to go to Vietnam, and just like my nephew who now is standing on freedom's ramparts, to allow his uncle to be here and to serve you all continually as I've taken off the uniform. That's my commitment to you.
All right, and now back to you, and you'll get this from first. Would you please tell us about your chief fundraising strategies and examples of their success?
Well, when I came back from Afghanistan and offered to run for elected office the first time in the 2008 year, you sit down at the National Republican Congressional Committee, and the first thing they ask you, how much money you're going to put in of your own. And I had to explain to them, I just got back from Afghanistan. But in 2008, I raised a little over $550,000 in about 7 or 8 months. We came up short in that 2008 election, but a lot of people encouraged me to run again. So in 2010, we raised $6 million. And in 2012, for my re-election, we raised $19 million. And continuing on through there, overall, since I came back from Afghanistan, we have raised almost $50 million between congressional races and conservative causes. How many people here know about Clint Lawrence, the young man that President Trump just recently pardoned? I was the major fundraiser for Clint Lawrence and his legal defense fund. It took us 6 years, but we did not give up on Clint. And Clint is now home here in Texas with his mother and his father and his family because we did what was necessary to raise the money. The most important thing about getting people to provide you their resources is to inspire them, to show them a vision, to show them a way forward. And I will tell you that when I think about how, when I was running for Congress, I came here to Texas to raise money, and think about all the people that come here to Texas to raise money, Texas should have far more. This Republican Party should have far more than the $4 million we have cash on hand, because Texas is just that good, Texas is just that important, and we need to make sure that not just the people here in Texas, but the people all across the United States of America understand the importance of the Republican Party of Texas and understand the importance of keeping Texas not just a little red, but a bright, shiny red.
All right, thank you. Chairman, I'll repeat the same question for you. Would you please tell us about your chief fundraising strategies and examples of their success?
Actually, I just came back from the winter meeting of the Republican National Committee, and we had discussions with finance people there. And Texas is being used as an example of several ways in which we are setting the benchmarks, and we are increasing our fundraising on all levels better than most states, and that's on all fronts. So we actually have on purpose a multi-fundraising strategy. So we have everything from internet and email to the Grassroots Club, which is absolutely crucial. Please, all of you, right away, join grassrootsclub.com if you're not already. You can join from $8.25 a month to $25 a month. It's absolutely fantastic. We have been setting records with that, as well as every other method of fundraising that we do, except telemarketing. As you can imagine, telemarketing is not necessarily a growing business for fundraising. But our major donors and direct mail and email and internet and online and all of that, Grassroots Club, are all setting records. We also, last time I raised money for the convention, we raised a record amount for the convention. We are constantly doing that, and a big part of it is working teamwork. We've got elected officials, we've got donors, we've got other folks actively out working. I appointed the victory chair at the earliest point there had ever been a victory chair appointed. She had hundreds of thousands of dollars raised by December. Normally, that had not happened. There had been cycles where only hundreds of thousands of dollars were raised, period. She is well on her way. Stacey Hawk, you'll hear more about our victory chair, Stacey Hawk, to come. She is doing an amazing job. And Don Buckingham last session did an amazing job. So my strategy is still the same. Build a team, execute well.
All right, thank you. And this question will come to you first. The term conservative is thrown around somewhat loosely today. There are numerous types of conservatives, including constitutional conservatives, fiscal conservatives, social conservatives, neoconservatives, and many more. We are known as the Conservative Party. But what does that really mean, and what type of conservative are you?
So the answer is yes, conservative. Part of my job is to welcome everyone into our party who shares our beliefs and values. Good news is our beliefs and values are laid out in our core principles. There are 10 of them on our website. It is very clear the things we stand for, and we welcome in everyone. And as head of the party, it is actually my job to live out Reagan's 11th commandment. To live out that if someone is 80% with us, that does not make them 20% our enemy. That, you know, we look over and the grass always looks greener. We look over the Democrats and we think, wow, they're so unified. They are not unified. But we have to be able to do so by being welcoming. Now, welcoming those when and as they share our beliefs. We've seen this in Texas. Those of us who've been in Texas more than a couple of decades, we've lived this. We've seen Democrats flip over. You know, I had somebody the other day tell me, oh my gosh, that person's a former Democrat. To which the right response is, and so was Ronald Reagan, and so was Phil Gramm, and so was Rick Perry. You know, every historically great Texas Republican was a former Democrat. because the Democrat Party has left them and continues to leave them by getting more and more extreme. And it is our job to show everyday Texans who might think they're Democrats that they are not. And that's why we have a field team out in urban and suburban areas right now to reach out into communities that we have not done a good enough job in the past of reaching out to let them know that they share our values, that we welcome them, that we want them aboard.
Thank you. Congressman West.
Same question.
For you.
Sure. The thing that we have to come to understand is that you have to go back and read the writings of John Locke. John Locke is the father of classical liberalism. Classical liberalism is today's conservatism. And what John Locke put forth was that the individual's rights comes from their creator, and those are life, liberty, and property. Of course, Thomas Jefferson took Locke's writings and changed that to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The most important thing to understand about conservatism is that conservatism elevates the individual, their liberties, their rights, their freedoms, their sovereignty over the institution of government. But yet what we see happening is that we're not conveying that message. And so this collective viewpoint, this progressive socialism is winning over. Free does not equal freedom. That's an important thing that we need to tell our kids. For me, where did conservatism start? I would challenge each and every one of you to go and read Booker T. Washington's book, Up From Slavery. Booker T. Washington is my ideological mentor. Booker T. Washington is the father of black conservatism. His philosophies, his principles were education, entrepreneurship, and self-reliance. Those are conservative principles. And if we hone those down, if we continue to express those, then we get people to come to our message. And when you think about Ronald Reagan had those three pillars. You don't take one pillar by itself. They are mutually supportive. It is fiscal conservatism. It is social conservatism. And it's national security. And that is what he built his message upon, and he communicated very concisely, very properly, and very directly. And this country responded to it. But I'm telling you, if you go and read that book, Up From Slavery, you will understand the essence of who we are. Always remember, conservatism creates victors. Progressive socialism must have victims.
All right, thank you. Now, prior to our closing statements, I have one more question that we'll share, and I will go back to starting with Congressman. Last question to you both. If you had to make one commitment to the Republicans voting for you, what would it be? What can we hold you accountable for in the next 4 years?
That I will do exactly the same thing that I did for the 22 years that I served in uniform and the time that I was out. That you can lay your head down on your pillow to know that every single moment of my waking day will be to advance the philosophies of governance of this constitutional republic, to fight for it vehemently and strongly, to live up to the oath that I took on 31 July 1982, that said I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, so help me God. I don't care if in uniform, out of uniform, that oath still lives within me. That is the most important thing you need to understand. The Republicans in the state of Florida redistricted me out because my oath was to the people. And the American people are embodied in our Constitution. So you will always know that any decision that I make will be based upon my honor, my integrity, and my character to make sure that I am serving you. Michael Jackson wasn't one of my favorite artists. My daughters back there will tell you that. But he did write a song called Man in the Mirror. And the thing I want you to know, at the end of every day, I will be able to look at myself in the mirror so that you all know that I lived up to the incredible standards of ethics and character that my dad inculcated into me.
Thank you, Chair. Congressman, and we'll go back to the chairman now. If you had one commitment to the Republicans voting for you, what would it be, and what could we hold you accountable for in the next 4 years?
If only were 4 years. I've been in 2.5 years. I'm in my third race, so it's 2-year terms. Yeah. What you can hold me accountable to is exactly what I have been doing for 2.5 years, and that is filling out the function of the chairman of the party at excellence levels that overall have not been seen before. And you said earlier, this is a job interview. Well, here's what's required for the job of the chairman. One, you are legally responsible for managing the primary election. That means making sure every county chair is equipped and empowered to take our primary filings. That is making sure that at our state level, that we are doing all of those properly, that every one of our candidates that files has that filing done properly so that the Democrats can't get them off the ballot in December. That's candidate recruiting to make sure we have those seats filled, because you lose 100% of the races that you're not in by December 9th of 2019. That is working to raise the money, which is a full-time job in and of itself. And thank God we have a lot of people committed to making sure that we do that and do that well. And it's building that team, it's building the staff, it's hiring and training and equipping and supporting people all over the state to make sure that county parties are empowered, that organizations are empowered, that auxiliaries and other coalitions are empowered. It's all of that, and then it's recruiting and exciting and turning out volunteers, and we are doing that at the biggest level we have ever seen. If I am reelected, you will see exactly that, a continuation of every one of those things done excellently.
All right, thank you. And we agreed in advance that you would each have 1 minute for a closing statement, and we will begin with the chairman.
You know, post the 2018 election, we sounded the alarm, and we went to the RNC. We arranged a meeting with the RNC less than 3 weeks after the election and went to them and said, we need a level of attention on Texas that hasn't been before. We need an effort for voter registration that we have not done before. And we got a version of Bless Your Heart, right? But we didn't stop there. We said, okay, great, let's go for different resources. And we built the biggest team the party has ever had. We raised the most money the party has ever had. We are doing the most training the party has ever done. We have 2,500 volunteers already with 11,000 registrations, another 11,000 in the works. We are well on our way to 100,000 voter registrations, 250 people in the field, 10 times ever before. We have a winning plan, and we need to keep that plan through victory in 2020, because I am not tired of winning.
Core of General Erwin Rommel. And after that decimation, General Eisenhower had a choice. He could have left the exact same commanding general in place of the Second Corps, or he could have made a change. Eisenhower decided to make a change, and he brought in General George Patton. And if you know the history in World War II, the rest is history. He never lost a battle. He was the most feared American general by the Germans in World War II. Einstein said that insanity is defined by continuing to do the exact same thing and think you're going to get different results. So I'll leave it at that. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, friends. Thank you.